Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Indian Table Talk Season 2. I'm Saranga Patil. I'm your host for the evening. And today we have with us Sylvie Crimp, who's joining us all the way from New Zealand. Make some noise for Sylvie, y'all. Woohoo!
Woo-woo.
So we are recording this episode in the month of June 2023. And if you might hear some background noise on my side, it's because of the rain, because it's been raining like crazy over here. All right, so that thing is done. Now, introduction about you. Sylvie is a student nurse and she loves dancing. She loves diving, reading, walking, art, travel, and she enjoys new experiences. And I met Sylvie in Jaipur, and we were at the same hostel. We shared the same room as well. And I think the fact that I approached you as a friend to like just talk to you was because you had shaved your head at the time, and it just for me it was very comfortable and organic to just talk to you because I'd done the same thing like twice, and then I showed you my Instagram photograph, and then both of us were like, ah. Yeah, so that was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. It felt like a special moment.
All right. So your trip to India, it was a solo trip, right? Your first trip to India.
Yeah. Solo trip. Not my first solo traveling, but it was my first solo trip and trip to India, which was wild. Fun and wild and crazy in all the best ways.
And you were here, and you were in India for how long? For how many months? I think 3 months, right?
No, it was only a month.
All right.
I had to come back to continue my degree. Otherwise, it would have easily been like 3 months plus. Like, there's so much to see and do in India. Like, it's insane. Like, quite literally, my month was like, it was like a little sample, like when you go to a supermarket sometimes you get like those samples and they're like, try this. That's kind of how it felt. And then I was like, oh, I need like the full package. I need like the full experience. And that's going to take a lot longer than a month. So yeah, I'm hoping to come back at some point next year. Fingers crossed the world and the universe works out for me to be able to do it.
All right. So I have 5 questions for you today, for today's episode,
Mhm.
and I insist that you answer them as honestly as possible. All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
All right. So question one. When we met, you identified as Jess, right? I think
Mhm.
your name right now on the Zoom meeting is still Jess Krim. That's why I was like, should I
Oh,
call her?
is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So for about
Oops.
like yeah, about like 6 weeks back, I think you posted on Instagram saying that you now identify as Sylvie, right? So, can you tell me a little bit
Mhm.
about your thought process at the time and how Sylvie encompasses you as a personality more aptly?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name and it's well, I've always viewed a name as an expression of self, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone has or attaches identity to a name, like whether it's someone you've met before, whether it's someone you haven't met. And like when you present yourself to someone, when you talk to someone and they give you a name, you quite often associate certain characteristics to
Yeah.
that name, therefore to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is like was a real interesting thought process to go through in the first place. But like last year, sometime probably beginning, maybe February, March, I just kind of started to feel like my evolution in myself and just like my general being really didn't match up to
Mm-hmm.
the name Jess, which was my previous name.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of just started thinking about different names that I could use in place of that, or what would it look like, or what would it feel like if I used a different name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it took me quite a while to get to Sylvie. And I'd heard it before, like I'd seen the name before, but I hadn't really gone, oh, that's like a really nice name and I really like that. But I saw it again maybe 2 months ago and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of used it in my head like, oh, what if I called myself Sylvie? And it just, I don't know, it just like clicked. It just like fit so perfectly with like the depiction I have of my soul and like my inner being, I guess.
Yeah.
So like I've kind of always imagined myself like, you know how like you have this little picture of yourself like in your head. Like I always thought if I could take a 2 second snapshot of
Mm-hmm.
who I was,
Yeah.
it would be me like in a field surrounded by trees in something long and flowy, like spinning round and laughing. And that was kind of it, you know, like bare feet, just like pure bliss and just enjoying being in like a singular moment kind of thing.
That's so cool. It's like
And
a
that's how I really felt.
free spirit, like.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, basically. And that's how I felt Sylvie kind of encompassed me because it actually means the translation means of the forest,
Mm-hmm.
the name Sylvie, which I didn't know until after I chose it. And then I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So and then as soon as I kind of decided that that was it,
Mhm,
everything else just kind of fell into place. Like I'd always been like partially unsettled in myself. Um, and I don't know, I feel a lot more peaceful. I feel a lot more content. And
mhm,
it's almost like I've like fully accepted and taken control of like who I am,
mhm.
I guess, in a way, and in the way that I allow people to perceive me
Okay.
as well as like kind of another thing. Yeah. So that's kind of a part of it. Yeah.
That's really mesmerizing, or like I think the word for it is inspiring, because I think when you choose a name for yourself, you sort of, it gives you confidence as to your personality and your name being together, right? So it sort of just combines the two of you together, and it's a different feeling. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I get it because I haven't changed my birth name to something else, but uh, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to understanding how that would feel someday. So maybe I don't know, I was just really intrigued by the fact that you chose a name for yourself, and it's really amazing. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. It's quite funny. A lot of people have been really intrigued as well, and they're really like, why? What is the purpose? So it's quite interesting to have that discussion. But yeah.
All right. First question, amazing answer. I'm loving this energy. And second question for you, drum roll. Da, 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 da. It is it is your first day in India. So, were you
Mhm.
anxious? Were you excited? Were you nervous? What were your first thoughts when you just landed in India? And uh, how is the perception of India different than than the reality compared to the vision that you had before coming here? So,
Okay.
yeah.
So first day, I'm not gonna lie, I was exhausted. I just been on a plane for like, like 20 hours or something. And I was like, fuck, just put me in a shower. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can swear or not.
You know, it's fine.
um,
I can censor it out. I can like blot that audio out.
okay, perfect. Yeah, but it was almost surreal landing because I'd heard so many things, like so many like differing opinions about India and about what it was like, especially as a solo woman. Like the amount of people I talked to before I left who were like, you're brave or you're crazy for going to India by yourself. And I was like, well, I'm doing it anyway. But like I got here and the airport was kind of just an airport, and it wasn't until I got out of the airport and onto the train because I landed in Delhi, and I got on the train to Delhi city center,
Mm-hmm.
and it I was excited and apprehensive all at the same time. And it all really combined when I got on the train and I was the only woman on the train, first off, but I was also the only white woman on the train.
Oh my God.
And I had a shaved head. I had a shaved head. And I didn't have a beanie on at this point, so my head was in full glory. And I
Uh-huh.
remember getting on this train and I remember locking eye contact with so many men and being like, what the actual hell? and kind of going, okay, like I'm actually in India. And then
Yeah.
on that train ride, we go past this like 4-lane motorway and I see this cow running down this 4-lane motorway. And that right there, that was the moment where I went, I'm in India. I was like, I have officially arrived in India. um, and I think from that point on, I didn't feel scared anymore. I was kind of just excited to see what was waiting for me because I just had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in terms of like my perception of India to what I'd kind of
Yeah.
heard about it,
Yeah.
um, it like I'd heard like dirty, especially like Delhi, like really big cities. I'd heard like really dirty
Yeah.
and really overcrowded and really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yes, that's true, but like I was almost I was almost like preparing myself to, how do I put it? Like I was preparing myself to be completely shocked and terrified and like, oh my God, what have I done? Why have I made this decision to come here? But I got into the city and I started walking around Delhi and I went, yeah, it's dirty and yeah, it's this and yeah, it's that. But it's also like, I don't know, there's just so much energy. Like I can't, that's the one thing about India that I found the most amazing was the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no doubt that that's what draws people back to it. That's what's drawing me back to it. And it's just so vibrant. Like there's so much going on, but the like foundational energy of it is so much vibrancy. And yeah, that was kind of how I felt. And I just remember feeling really like, oh, I feel really good. I feel really okay. And I didn't feel like, you know, like, because as you know, you walk around the streets and like there's tuk-tuks driving past you and you're literally like you're shoulder to shoulder with the cars
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
like walking towards cows and you're like,
Yeah.
you know, like that's such a foreign
Yeah.
concept here. But I just felt so unstressed because
Okay.
it's almost like you just become a part of the energy so like easily if you allow yourself to be. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're just a part of the flow of the rest of everything else. And it's like within 2 days, I was like, it feels like I've been here for years. It was really weird. Um, but it was also really cool at the same time. But yeah, I can't remember the rest of your question.
All right. I think it does answer my question and the things that I had in my head when I framed this question. So, all right. I'm gonna go to the next question, the third one, which is in your 1 month, 1 month's time span in India. If you have to pick one day, which is like the best day that you've had in terms of memory, which one would you pick and why?
Oh, there's a few of those.
I
That's really
I
hard.
I thought you'd say that.
There's a few of those. I think I think the thing that has stuck in my heart the most was a day I was in Ranthambore National Park,
Which one?
and I Ranthambore
Yeah.
National Park.
Okay.
Um, and I'd gone down there for a safari, but the day before the safari, I went up. There's a really old fort in the
Mhm.
national park. I can't even remember what the fort's called. And I went, okay, I'm gonna go up there. No idea how I was gonna get up there, but I went to the like point where you get driven up. And I saw this local tourist car, and I was like, I'm one person, can I just get in your car and pay 20 rupees, because otherwise they wanted me to pay like 400 rupees for a return trip, and me being a stingy backpacker, I was like, I'm not paying 400 rupees.
That's like the basic rules of traveling solo. You gotta just get in. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, perfect,
Yeah.
nail on the head.
Yeah.
And it was real hard to convince them to let me in. They were like, no, this is for the locals. And I was like, I'm just one person. Anyway, they eventually let me in to the back of this truck, and I was squashed in with all these local families. And on the way up, this really, really, really beautiful woman, Shrishati, she started talking to me when her family was there, her
Mhm.
two sons and her husband and her sister-in-law. And we talked all the way up, fairly broken English, but enough to communicate.
Okay.
And we got up to the fort, and I got out kind of just expecting them to want to go do their thing. And
Hmm.
then they kind of just followed me around, and we just kept talking and talking and talking. And then they were like, come with us. And I was like, okay. And I went back all the way back to the fort, and I had no idea, but there were all these temples there. So they
Hmm.
took me back all the way to the back of this fort and took me to these temples. And the husband was like, come with me. And he took me to get some offerings. And then he took me through the temple and told me exactly what to do and how to pray and how to give the offerings. And I got the red
Oh
and
yeah.
yellow
Yes.
cotton, yeah, on my left wrist.
It's the holy thread, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and then after that, they took me to get some chai, and we sat and we talked. And I was offered food out of their bag, and it was really beautiful. And then we were walking back down the hill, and they go, do you want to come and spend the night with us? Do you want to come to our house?
Okay.
And I was like, yeah. I was like, go on.
Oh my God, are you
I was
nuts?
like,
Even I wouldn't go for
no,
that.
a little bit nuts. I just let it go, and I felt like, because I'd spent like 2 hours with them at this point,
Okay.
and the kids had really really kind of like I'd really started bonding with the littlest, who was only 4, and it was just like the energy of it just felt really wholesome and safe,
All right.
and I was like, I'm happy to go with this. So
Yeah.
we go down the fort, get down to the bottom, and they're like, do you have a bike? And I'm like, no. And they're like, get on ours. And I was like, okay. So I watch as dad gets on, littlest gets on, mum gets on, and they're like, get on the back. So I'm like the
No.
fourth person on the back of this moped. And they're like, they're like, come, let's go. And I'm like, okay. So I'm just sitting on the back of this moped as the fourth person. Like, we drove for like 20 minutes on this moped,
Oh
and
God.
we get to the house, and they basically just opened up their home to me. It was quite late by the time we got there, like it was probably 7, 8 o'clock, and the wife goes, here, have some track pants, have a t-shirt, because I didn't have any clothes or anything on me. It was all at my hotel. And yeah, she gave everything to me, and then I went and played with the kids for a bit, and then she called me into the kitchen. She goes, come, sit, sit, sit. So like I sit on the floor of the kitchen, like how they normally eat at home, and she just fed me all of this homemade food, and she was cooking all of this bread right in front of me, the one that I can't even remember what it's called now, the one that bubbles up
Oh yeah, yeah.
on the stove.
Roti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did I forget? Yeah. Anyway, cooking with this roti right in front of me, and like she just keeps whacking it on my plate, and I've had like 5 rotis at this point, and I'm like, I
Uh,
actually
uh,
can't eat anymore.
oh my God. I'm sorry. I think it's not called roti, it's called fulka. Fulka. Because it fulka means risings, and because it like rises up,
Yeah.
it's called fulka. So yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So you had like 5 fulkas at this point, and then what happened?
Yeah, and then she just kept putting curry on my plate, and then she put a whole chili on my plate,
Okay.
and I'm sitting there like, and I didn't even think about it. I just take a bite out of this whole chili, and then she goes, no,
Oh.
no, 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 don't eat this whole chili. And I sat there crying because it was really hot,
Oh my God.
trying to cool down.
Okay.
Um, but it was just like this incredibly wholesome moment, and I just felt like another child. They'd just like taken in this other person, and they just gave everything that they could to me to make me feel at home, to keep me fed, to keep me warm. They offered me their bed. They slept on the floor on their squabs, and I had their bed to sleep in.
Mhm.
And like it was just the most wholesome thing. And it was so beautiful. And I had to leave quite early the next morning, but I got messages from them the following days being like, the youngest is calling you Dee Dee, which is, you
Aw.
know, probably means big
Yeah.
sister, and is
Yeah.
like really missing you, and we really want to FaceTime you. So I FaceTimed them a couple of times, and
Aw.
like, yeah, it was just really, really, really special to be welcomed into a home, and also to just see that the way that everyone lived, um, like, you know, because it's quite different from here, you know,
Yeah.
from New Zealand. Of course it is. It's an entirely different culture.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just, yeah, it was just really, 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 really special. My mum thought I was crazy, and she said, "You're lucky you didn't die." And I said, "Yeah, I know," but she panicked. I told her, I'm at this house. And she was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I was like, "Well, you know, mum, I feel safe, so it's fine." Oh, and then the hotel had no idea where I was, so they nearly called the police on me to come and find me because they thought I'd been eaten by a tiger. And it was like the most stressful thing because I got back the next morning and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine." And they were like, "Where were you? We were so worried." And I was like, "I just stayed at a local family's house." And they were like, "You can't do that." And I was like, "Well, actually, I can." And I did. I didn't say that. I'm really sorry for stressing you out. I didn't mean to make you feel that pain. And they were like, "We were up till like 12 o'clock in the morning because we thought you died or been kidnapped. You're a white woman by yourself." And I was like, "I'm fine, too." It was quite funny. I feel really bad for causing them that much stress, but at the same time, I was like, I had a really great time. So there you
I
go.
swear
There's my
I
story.
wouldn't I wouldn't do the same thing because I mean for me I think because I'm an Indian I would think twice before going to a stranger's person, but because I mean so would you or so would any other tourist, but then yeah I mean kudos to you, you just went ahead with it and you had a good time and the energy was really amazing, so
Yeah.
that's the best thing, right? That's the takeaway, so no regrets, good thing.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I just trusted the energy. Like if it had just, I absolutely said if it had been the husband and had been like, "Come back," or la la la, I probably would have been a very different story.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'd never say yes to just a man by himself. But
Yeah.
they were just such a beautiful family, and it was just like, yeah, it was just everything just kind of aligned for that. You know, it was just really
Yeah.
special. But
it, it's
yeah,
it's really the story is really warming, so I'm really glad you experienced that in India, so
thank you. Now you probably think I'm absolutely nuts, and that's okay.
I think you definitely are absolutely nuts, but then you came to India all by yourself, so that's the first clue I should have had, so yeah. All right, so the next
Bro, I started out that way.
all right, so far so good, amazing. The fourth question I have for you is as you've been traveling solo in India for the last
Mhm.
for that 1 month, and when you did go with tourists and with local people for these local experiences, as a woman, as an international tourist, did you feel safe when you were walking on the streets of India? And that's my first question. So that the safety issue, it starts from Delhi till the time that you left to your hometown for New Zealand, right? So at any
Mm.
point of time in this 1 month, did you feel like your safety was threatened, and did you take any deliberate precautions while traveling?
Um, it didn't happen often, but yes, I did at certain points feel unsafe.
Okay.
Not a new experience,
Hmm.
unfortunately, as a woman. Um, yeah, so Delhi actually didn't have many issues. it was kind of once I got beyond Delhi, and the main issues I had were in um, Rajasthan. Not in all
Okay.
the cities, but in a few of them. Mostly Jaipur, actually, is
Okay.
where I had the most issues. And it was just, it was, it was a bit, I think a big part of it was men assuming that because I was a solo woman, I wasn't able to look after myself, and or they thought because I was a solo woman that they could easily take advantage of me. And you can kind of pick up on that.
Yeah.
um and sometimes you just have to play along because it's safer and easier to, and then remove
Mm-hmm.
yourself in another
Mm-hmm.
way. But it was, yeah, like there was this one man in Jaipur who I met on the street, and I had a lot of really beautiful exchanges just, walking into people on the
Mm-hmm.
street.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into him, and he was an artist, and we started talking, and I write some poems every now and then. They're just really silly. And I read him one of my poems. And it was a little bit forward. It was talking about boobs. And I kind of didn't think about it until I'd done it, and I was like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea. And I think he like took that
Oh shit.
as a hint kind
Oh
of
shit.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like sometimes you get carried away. And he was like, come have some chai at my house, and I was like, no. I was like,
Yeah.
I will have some chai with you in public, but I will
Mm-hmm.
not have chai with you at your house. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh, we can just get on my bike. And I was like,
Oh
no. I
shit.
was
Yeah.
like, if you want, I was like, I'm happy to have tea, but we're
Yeah.
going to walk, and it's
Yeah.
going to be in public.
Yeah.
um like things like that. Never just getting on the back of someone's nut bike at night, because that's just not the smartest move.
What time was it, did you
And
say? Was it night? Was it
it
the
was like
night?
9 o'clock at night.
Oh
Yeah, it was
shit.
quite late.
Yeah.
um and we went and had chai, and all was well, and I was feeling fine.
Mhm.
And then he turns to me and he says, I've invited a friend. He doesn't speak any English. And I went, okay, I got to get out of here. I was like, I got to go. I was like, I got to go right now.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but it's really late, and I've got to be up really early tomorrow. I'm gonna go get a tuk-tuk. And he's like, oh, just drive you back. And I was like, nah, 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 nah. I was like, nah, nah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
And so his friend turns up as I'm trying to get a tuk-tuk, and the friend's just standing there and just staring at me. And I'm like, why
Oh
are you just
shit.
staring at me? And I accidentally allowed both of them to overhear the hostel I was staying at.
Oh shit.
And the next morning, I come
Oh
out
shit.
of my hostel, and he's sitting outside my hostel waiting for me. And I was like,
Oh no.
no. I was like, I looked at him, I was like, no. And he was like, oh my gosh, hi. Like, I can take you around the city today. And I was like, no, I've got somewhere to be. I'm meeting a friend. I'm really sorry, because I don't want to make anyone angry, because he knows where I am. That's one thing that I really find frustrating
Mm-hmm.
and use as a safety precaution, is not making people angry for
Mm-hmm.
fear of them like doing something else in
Mm-hmm.
retaliation to that.
Yeah.
Um, and he took the hint, thankfully, and then I thought that would be it. But then the next morning, so 2 days in a row, he
It
was there
doesn't end. Oh my God.
again. I know, he was there again, and I was like, no, I was like, what's happening? But thankfully, I left the hostel that morning with
Okay.
a male friend I had made at the hostel
Okay.
like the day before or something. So
Okay.
he basically just like left me alone straight off the bat. But yeah, so that one really shook me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, ah. And then the other ones I had in Jaipur were like, people would drive past you in a tuk-tuk. Like, you'd be walking that way and they'd be driving that way, and then they'd stop down the road and get out of their tuk-tuks, and they'd run up to me, to follow me, to talk to me, to ask me things, and I'd be like, go away. So what I found easier, and I did this a lot, was that when people would start talking to me, I'd be like, oh, give me your WhatsApp. And so they'd just give me their phone number, but I'd never message them, of course. But by getting them to give me their phone number, they thought that I'd conceded to their whatever they wanted from me,
Yeah.
where I had the power. So I wouldn't message them, and I'd be like, no. But it was the easiest way to just like get them off my back, because otherwise I just have like all these people following me
Yeah.
all the time. But you just have to get really good at saying no. And you shouldn't have to be good at saying no. But I got really, really good at saying no very forcefully. And there were occasionally a couple of times that I had to swear to make people really, because like a woman swearing is like, you know, and then they'd mutter and think you're crazy. And they'd be like, oh, you're like an absolute bitch. And you'd be like, well, at least I'm alive. So, you know, kind of things like that, which is not funny. But unfortunately, it's just part of traveling as a solo woman. So yeah, that was one of my crazy experiences.
That's horrifying. That's fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
I just saw it on my own show.
Yeah.
That's bloody yeah. That's horrifying. I would never ever want this to happen to anybody.
Yeah. No, it's and it's like, and even if you're just incredibly, incredibly cautious, like think like, you know, I just accidentally said my hostel name too loud and that was it. Like because he asked me where I was staying and I was like, oh, just on the other side of town. Like I'd never ever give the name of where I was staying. Like that's just, you know, that's just, or at least I think that's common sense. But yeah, it was just like an unfortunate moment, that one. But thankfully he disappeared and I never saw him again.
Thank God.
Thank goodness. And it was a lucky moment where he just didn't try anything else. I don't think he necessarily would have, because I was a white woman. I can draw a lot of attention if I want to, quite easily, which I shouldn't need to and I shouldn't have to, but if I can kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We love misogyny. It's so good. It's not. It's terrible.
All right, so we are back with a small 4-minute high tea break because my Zoom stopped recording and I didn't want to pay Zoom for more money. So yeah. All right, so we were on our fourth question where you said that man who just wouldn't stop, like he was persistent about the Jaipur thing. Did something like that happen again during your time in India?
Not like that specifically. I more so just had people that were very, very, very persistent, and insistent and trying to get me to do things or go places, or contact them, etc. Yeah, I didn't have anything specifically like that again, thankfully. I probably would have lost my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the issues more came from that point on, more so kind of when you got out of train stations or airports. Just the like barrage of people who would insist on you being their tuk-tuk or taxi driver.
Oh, yeah.
And just wouldn't leave you alone if you said no, and would follow you for a really long time. And that got quite hard. And that's kind of when I said about the swearing thing, is quite often when I'd have people who would just follow me for ages, I'd be like, can you just F off? And then finally they'd kind of leave me alone and they'd like take the hint. But what was really interesting though, I kind of learned, was hand gestures were more effective than my voice. So I quite often just do that, like a little swipe away motion, and that was more effective than me saying no. Okay. It was like if I used my voice, they kind of had been like, oh, I've got her attention, I've got her engagement, so therefore I can keep getting something from her, or I can wear her down until she says yes, which is what a lot of people tried to do, which did work once or twice, but generally I was like I'm so stubborn, so I'd be like, no, there is no way I'm letting you get away with this. But yeah, that was a really interesting thing to learn, that hand actions and body actions had more respect than using your voice.
Yeah.
And then men had more respect in general. So sometimes I just find men to hang out with for the day, because I'd be like, I really can't be bothered trying to battle the world today. So I'm just gonna stand behind you and everyone will talk to you and they'll leave me alone. And it'll be great. But yeah.
I think that I know the reason why one of the reasons why I think the taxi and the tuk-tuk drivers approach white and foreigners more often is because from their point of view they can fool you for more money because you don't know anything about the local rates. That's the
Yeah.
only issue. And I think also because you're white, that would be like another separate part to it, but I think it's more to the money that that's why they are persistent. They don't give up on that, on only the on that, yeah,
Absolutely.
on that aspect. So
Absolutely.
I actually faced something
I had
myself
some.
outside the hostel in Jaipur, right? So I was trying to go to the literature festival, right? And I couldn't get
Yeah.
an Uber there because it was, I don't know, for some reason Jaipur is like it's like a town. It's not a city. And I'm used to cities, right? I've lived in Bombay and Pune, and it's not how generally I'm also used to my surroundings. So it was just really weird because my Uber didn't come in, and the auto in front of our hostel, the one which we were at, it just didn't take me
Yeah.
because I was a local person and I knew the rates, and that the auto person was waiting for a white guy, girl, woman to leave the hostel building so that they can take them. I was talking to that driver that please take me to that location because I have to reach at that particular time. And he quoted some really bizarre number. He said 500 rupees, whereas on the Uber app you could see it's just like 250 or 300 rupees, right? So they're charging double the amount. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't white, so that was the second part. So it was so frustrating because just towards my left on the entrance gate, I think there was a couple, a white couple who just walked past. And when I was talking to the driver, he just left the conversation mid and he just like ran behind them. And he was like, sir, 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 ma'am, ma'am, ma'am. And it was the same thing. He was persistent. And I saw that. And I was like, can you just leave them alone? Because that's how we get a bad name in a weird way. So yeah, I mean, I do get that.
Yeah.
I understand what you're trying to say in that point of view. So yes.
Yeah. That's really frustrating for you though. You're like, I still need to get places.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like that's just really frustrating, especially as a local. I can't
Yeah.
imagine being stiffed, like, oh, you're not worth the time or the money because you
Yes.
know that I can't rip you off. I just think
Yes.
that's not it.
Yes. So and especially because Jaipur is a tourist place, right? So yeah, I mean it's worse in the tourist area sometimes. Sometimes, and I was
Yeah.
traveling alone as well, so I didn't have anybody with me. So it's that.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you for sharing with me. And I'm sorry that you had to feel the effects of it too.
Yeah, and there was eve teasing. There was yeah, it was the same for me as well because again it's different. You know a local person and a person from the city. You can tell them apart, even for Indians. Local
Mm,
Jaipur people or local people from the villages, they won't wear the same attire as that city girls wear, right? So you can differentiate that this person has come from Bombay or Pune, and it's sort of similar to us as well, but I think it gets worse for foreigners and for international tourists because A, money, and B, because I don't know what weird satisfaction they have while by chasing white people. So that's
yeah, it's a real interesting thing, like to be associated with a white person. It kind of plays in. I feel like it kind of plays into that like weird thing that we as the Western world have created, that like white people are superior, which
yeah.
we're not. We are absolutely not. But it's kind of like that's kind of what I feel it plays into. Like somehow Yeah, because I remember talking to some taxi drivers and they'd be like, "Oh, my friend from like somewhere in Europe," and they'd show you, and they hadn't talked in like 4 years, like pre-COVID, and you're like, "Are you actually friends, or did you just like have a one-off exchange with this person and like, you know what I mean?" And you're pulling them out as like, "See,
Yeah.
like I have all these white friends." It was, yeah, it's really interesting, I thought, but yeah.
All right, so I come to my last question for today's
Mhm.
episode. It is in your 1 month of being in India, do you have any advice, any message for somebody who is traveling to India for the first time or traveling solo to India for the first time? Either one. Yeah.
Um, I definitely say for those traveling solo, if you haven't traveled solo before, don't start in India. Yeah, that's a big one. I have heard some people talking about going solo traveling for the first time and they'd be somewhere like India. And I'd be like, no, I'd be like, don't. You need to know yourself well enough and you need to have your head screwed on enough. Otherwise, you will end up in a lot of precarious and dangerous situations. So just, go to Europe. Europe is great for first time solo travels, if you can afford it. Or Asia. We're like Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
also great. And then do India. But like for anyone looking to go to India, just bite the bullet. Like, just do it. There's going to be no right time to go to India because it's India. It's constantly chaotic. It's its own entity. Like, and people would talk to me before I left about like India's its own place. It's its own entity in itself. And I
Mhm.
didn't understand it till I got there, but it entirely is. Um, and I guess ask, like when it comes to booking things, um like trains and buses and planes, if you're booking planes anywhere, don't go to those tour agencies.
Oh, fuck.
So many people get done by those,
Yeah.
and like you can do it all your a combination of yourself and with the support of hostels or hotels. Like the hostels and hotels and the staff are so helpful and quite literally know how to do everything.
Yeah. And I
um
think you have booking.com,
which
right?
is
That's
great.
the safest website. Booking.com, right?
Booking.com and
Yeah.
Hostel World. Yeah, if you're looking for hostels specifically, but yeah, like all great. Yeah, and just like ask around, ask your fellow travelers, like, what's the rate for this? Like, all the things like that. Because, like we said before, people are going to try and get a lot of money out of you because they
Yeah.
think that they can.
Yeah.
So you just kind of, got to know what's up with the local rates
Hmm.
and don't, like, there's obviously a leeway. Like, we do to a degree, of course, as like, if I'm talking from a Western perspective,
Hmm.
we do have more money, than a lot of people unfortunately in India, which is not fair.
Hmm.
It really sucks, but it
Hmm.
is kind of just the way it is.
Yeah.
We're hopefully going to work to change that as life goes on. I like to think I can do that. Like still have a little bit of flexibility, I guess, within your rates. Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, a lot of what you are doing, and this is something that took me a while to kind of figure out, like when you're going and you're haggling with tuk-tuk drivers and you're haggling with people in markets, like that is their living. And like comparatively, we're normally discussing like $1, like you're normally discussing between like 50 and 100 rupees difference. And that is $1, $2 maximum, which for us is not much. Um, so yeah, I guess it's kind of that, like be aware of it, but also, just also be aware that people still need to make money and they still need to live and they have families to feed and they shouldn't have to suffer to do that, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, enjoy it. Go with the flow. I feel like India is a kind of place with the energy where you kind of just have to give into it. And like you just have to, like the best way to experience the country is to just let it take you on a journey. And that means just letting things happen to you almost, obviously with safety and everything in mind. But when people in, broad daylight come and talk to local people. That's one thing I really noticed that really annoyed me, was a lot of foreigners really avoiding talking to local people. Like, you can tell pretty quickly off the bat if someone just wants something from you or if they want to have a conversation with you. And a lot of people just wanted to have a conversation. Like, they didn't even want anything from you. They were just genuinely curious about, oh, you're this person in my country. Who are you? What are you doing here? Like, how long have you been here? Where are you going? And I had a lot of really beautiful exchanges like that. People just like welcome you to come sit with them, and they'd give you chai, and then you'd be like, I've got to go. And they'd be like, nice to meet you. Come back tomorrow. And I'd be like, okay. And like, it was just this like really beautiful energy exchange. But yeah. And listen to your intuition, and listen to like what you want to do, because I had so many people be like, no, you can't do this now, and you can't do this now, and you can't do this now, you have to wait till this to do this. And I was like, it got really overwhelming. But like, unless you're going way up north to like Kashmir or something, which you can go to, may not be the smartest, but you can go to. Like, unless you're going up somewhere like that where it's going to be really, 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 really cold at certain points in time, you can do almost anything at any time in India during the peak season. So just do what you want to do when you want to do it. And like, that's just how you'll experience it. Don't listen to other people and miss out on something that you're really looking forward to experiencing, because everyone's telling you can't do it at this point in time, because there's never a wrong time to do something normally. But yeah, I guess that was a lot of rambling. But I guess, that's kind of it. Just enjoy it. Just love it. Like, I can't wait to come back and just let myself fall into it again, and just kind of like go where it takes me. Like, India
I
was
think
a life-changing
the next
experience for
stop
me.
that you should visit must be the south, because I don't think you've been to the south, right?
No, that is my next stop.
You should.
If and when I do come back, well, not if, when I do come back, because definitely I'm coming back, I'm going to fly into the south and then probably make my way up wherever I go
Yes.
from there.
From the south, you can go to Sri Lanka, and then you can go to Maldives. I don't know which one, and then it'll be like a.
It sounds perfect. It sounds so glam. I love it. But yeah, no, India was life-changing for me, and I truly mean it. It was life-changing for me. So yeah, if you allow yourself to be open to the possibility of India, you will find almost anything and everything beyond what you could possibly comprehend. You could find, like, in one place, I think. So yeah.
All right. On that note, we have reached the end of today's episode. I hope you had a fun time answering my questions, and I hope I didn't bother you too much.
No, not at all. Thank you for having me. I've actually really enjoyed it. I feel like all I've done is talk this whole time, and all you've done is listen.
And this is Saranga Patil signing off for today. Thank you so much, Sylvie, for being here, and I will be with you all, my viewers, listeners, again on the next episode. So bye-bye and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So can we go again? I'm really sorry. I just was a little nervous. Can we
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, of course.
All right.
Do what you need. I've never been on a podcast before, so I don't know how to. You do what you need to do.
All right. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Take 2.
I changed my name since you pointed it out. So thank you.
Welcome. All right. So we are back.
I changed my name since you pointed it out. So thank you.
Welcome. All right. So we are back.